Hello, friends. You're listening to episode 770 of the Juicebox Podcast. Cue the music. On today's show, we're going to be speaking with Melena. She's 20 years old, lives in Germany, and has had type 1 diabetes for most of her life. While you're listening to Melena tell her story, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. I'm looking for type 1s or type 1 caregivers who are U.S. residents to go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and fill out a very short survey. When you complete the survey, you have helped me, you have helped yourself, and you've helped other people living with type 1 diabetes. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Easy questions. You know the answers to these questions. They're not super difficult. They are completely anonymous. The questions and the entire thing are HIPAA compliant. You're safe, you're covered, and you're helping. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Take you fewer than 10 minutes.
Danke für die Teilnahme an der Umfrage.
Let's hope that said what I thought it did. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitoring system, and the Dexcom G7, which was just released in the United Kingdom, Ireland, Germany, Austria, and Hong Kong. More countries to come very soon. Learn more or get started today at dexcom.com/juicebox. You may be eligible for a free 10-day trial of the Dexcom G6. Learn more at my link. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
Hi, my name's Melena. I'm 20 years old. I live in South Germany, and I've had diabetes for, I think, 16 years.
You think 16 years?
I think I'm just doing the math. Yeah. Got soon to be 17 years.
You know, I kind of like it when people don't exactly know, because it just feels so normal. They're like, I don't know. I've had it for a while now. Diagnosed as a kid. And are you,
Yes.
Do you live on your own? You do, right?
Well, I'm kind of in an in-between situation. So I'm currently working an internship quite close to home. So I spend like the week at my own flat, and I go home during the weekends.
Oh, that's nice. So you live with your parents, but you have this situation where you're gone for a little while at your own place.
Exactly.
Excellent. So you're out of college, or this is part of university?
This is like the last part of college.
Okay.
I'm finishing up now.
Nice. What's your degree in?
Psychology.
Excellent. Don't pick me apart too much, okay? While we're doing this, if you notice I'm really unstable, tell me privately. You know what? I don't care. Tell me here if you want to. So what made you interested in that line of work?
Well, I shouldn't be telling this.
This sounds like a good start, Melena. Let's tell me some things you don't want to tell anybody. Go ahead.
No, I'm more interested in like general psychology, not psychotherapy or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of got me interested is we live in a world with so much technology around us, where human error is kind of one of the biggest parts. So understanding why we as humans are as fallible as we are was like one of my major motivations.
Ooh, I like that. Have you figured anything out so far?
Well, a lot, actually. I mean, humans have so many biases and make so many errors, which, I mean, we all make the same mistakes, technically. Yeah. So that's been interesting.
So simple stuff like we have a preconceived notion about something, and then even if the correct answer is presented to us, we can't see it. And not only can we not see it, but we'll defend our position. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like the first impression you get of a person is going to influence your entire behavior towards that person, even if everything that happened after your first meeting is completely unrelated to that.
If the person you met was aware of that, can they change how you feel about them?
Not really, actually. That's one of the hardest things about biases. They're very, very hard to avoid, even if you yourself are aware of them.
Is it uncommon for people to be aware of them?
I mean, most people don't really think about them at all. So there's kind of not a desire for awareness. I mean, in our social behavior and everything regarding to that, we make so many small unconscious decisions. I don't think people even spend time thinking about this, and therefore there's not that much to be aware about in most people's minds.
Is this why we see what's an example? Why we see people say vote against their own best interests sometimes?
That's one example, yes.
Yeah, like you just, somebody has sold you a bill of goods and you believe in it so much that you can look in the face of it and say, I'm going to support this, even though it's going to hurt you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? Is it because we're what's the word I want? Is it because our minds are still mostly undeveloped?
Well, I don't actually know.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest here. I think it's because there's so many things going on in our minds. I mean, the part of our decision making which we experience consciously is a very small part. There are very many things, basically open browser tabs in the back of our head.
Okay.
Which are always working. And so I actually think this is an effect of our mind doing a lot of things and our consciousness being very limited.
So what should we do? Should we put a I guess maybe all you could do is try to be ultra aware of your actions and reactions and judge them in the moment, and then have some sort of a process set up in your own life where you can put a stop to them, and then you make the next decision you would make about that subject, I would guess, then would be more conscious and less coming from one of those open tabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said before, like the biggest part in fighting all of these unconscious effects is awareness of them. Like if you consciously start thinking about, hey, why don't I like this person, for example, you tend to be more aware of the reasons things like this happen.
It's interesting. I think it's, have you found ways, I should say, that are applicable to diabetes?
Well, I mean, it's kind of this thing. I have thought about this in the past, and I think maybe it's people who like to stick to like one kind of technology, like people who don't want a pump because they're so used to their pens. We have like this notion of their pens working, and this being the thing that once helped them, that they don't want to get like another option.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is kind of similar.
I can tell you a place.
Well, maybe if one way of therapy has been very successful in the past, that you don't want to try new things because you've got like the positive effect of this going on.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it, I think, a little when people talk about insulin pricing as an example, because you have this very obvious reaction, like this shouldn't be this expensive, right? We shouldn't.
Scott, I'm gonna interrupt you right there.
Go ahead.
I'm from Germany.
You don't pay for your insulin?
I don't pay for my insulin.
well, we'll pick something else then. It's let's see. I don't know. I don't have an apples to apples. I'm just gonna have to keep going with my description for a second. But insulin's expensive here, and it's if you're covered by insurance, for some people it almost costs nothing. I would expect that we don't pay out of pocket. It's easy to say I probably pay $20 a month or something for insulin, which isn't true. We have a health insurance plan, which I think we probably contribute. Oh gosh, by the time you pay for the plan every month out of your paycheck, and then there's an amount of money you have to pay cash in the beginning, I probably pay $8,000 a year for health insurance. So to say that insulin's $20 isn't really fair. All of our doctor's appointments, Arden supplies, etc., cost us, I bet we pay $8,000 to $10,000 a year for all that stuff. And then there's co-pays where you sometimes show up at an office and have to still pay $20 or $40 and etc., and medications, etc. But the point is that when you hear people argue about it and say it should be free, I say yes, it definitely should be free. And they'll say, well, in Germany, it's free. Why can't we do that here? And then, I don't know, I might say, well, then that's just not how it's set up here right now. And there are people who make money off of it in all different kinds of ways. So just saying that you think it should be free is not going to fix it, right? You need to see bigger picture, and there are ways to attack the problem. So now we're not talking about insulin pricing anymore. We're talking about democracy, commerce, how people make money. But when the argument happens, it's just like, this is wrong. And I'm like, no, I know it's wrong. Now get past that and come up with an answer. And then sometimes the answers freak me out. I had a person tell me one time, pharmaceutical companies shouldn't have PR departments. They shouldn't run ads. And then they would save all kinds of money on that. And then that money they could take off the price of insulin. I said, well, that's okay. I don't know if that's a real idea or not, but take your opinion and we'll keep moving forward. I said, what happens if one of the PR executives has diabetes and now he doesn't have a job and now he can't afford his insulin, but now we give the money we were going to give him, we give it to somebody else. Now they can afford it. I said, you haven't really fixed the problem. You've moved the problem around a little bit. And then the response is so emotional that they can't talk through the real problem. And I wonder if that's not a similar situation where you just keep having an emotional response to something instead of being able to step back and then work through the rest of it, like all of the other problems. And I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch to attach it to diabetes, but it is what happens to people. They get caught in whatever kind of occurs to them first. Oh, this isn't right. Now this is what I defend. Or someone else steps up and goes, well, people have to make money too. And then that's the perspective that they defend. Nobody ever stands in the middle and tries to absorb all of the complexity, I guess. That's uncommon sometimes.
I think kind of the comparison I'm thinking of is the example you always use when someone's always going low because their basal is technically too low. Mm-hmm. So the basal rate's not strong enough and they keep correcting. And they always think there must be too much insulin going on, which technically it is because of the corrections. But the core of the problem, if they would step away from the current situation, would be that there's actually not enough.
Yeah. I got you. That's how I talk about it all the time. You must like this podcast, huh?
Might have listened to some episodes.
How long have you been aware of the podcast?
I think late 2018, early 2019.
Nice. I was really hitting my stride then. Although I think I've done some good stuff prior to that. There just weren't as many people. There weren't as many people listening at that point. How did you find it?
Actually, it was kind of like I don't want to call it an accident, but I scrolled past it because when I moved out from my parents for university. I was living in a single person flat. So during most of the day, I had no one to talk to. And so I generally started listening to podcasts. And well, there are only so many true crime podcasts out there. And so I kind of just went around for looking for like things I could listen to which would interest me. And diabetes was not something I was thinking about, but the moment it showed up on, I think it was Spotify, I was kind of thinking, well, I have diabetes. I could just as well listen to this.
Wow. I appreciate that. I know the true crime podcasts are apparently huge, especially with women. Apparently, I don't understand why, but I'm glad that you were able to get away from them. I just looked while you were talking, and Germany is my 5th most popular country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Did not know that.
You beat New Zealand, who, by the way, New Zealand, you're dropping off a little bit. So let's try to get it together. Okay. That's when you find it, and I'm American, does that change anything for you?
Not really. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts in English, and I watch most of the TV I watch in English, so doesn't really make a difference. And we also use what's the unit, milligrams per deciliter for blood sugar levels. So it was actually kind of helpful that you were American.
Okay. What happens when you realize I'm now listening to a diabetes podcast by an American who doesn't have diabetes?
Well, I'm thinking of how I'm going to express myself here.
Take your time.
At first, I was kind of mad at you, maybe.
I get that.
Because the thing is, when I was diagnosed when I was 4, and up until my teen years, my father was the person responsible for most of all the diabetes-related things. And that caused us to not have such a great relationship to some of my teen years. So listening to a father talking about his daughter's diabetes, which he manages, I mean, I was interested, but I was also kind of like, I don't want to say hate listening, but it kind of started as that.
I imagine a lot of people hate listen, but that's okay with me. Mad because I shouldn't be talking about something I don't have, or mad because I'm doing something with my daughter you wish your dad did, or what's this? How does that hit you?
No, I kind of, I think like looking at someone's blood sugar, treating someone with insulin, always like the idea back when I was growing up, Dexcom was not as big as it is now. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a thing in the early years even. Like the idea of when I was like, I don't know, in my early teens, late childhood, somewhere around that, if my father would have had like a Dexcom to look at and would have basically followed me around, like always looking at my numbers, I kind of think this is a scary thing for me to imagine.
Would it feel intrusive, or you just wouldn't want your dad that close all the time, or?
It would feel intrusive, and also like being in control of someone else, like pretty much completely. So, yeah.
Okay. I got you. That makes sense to me. How long did you listen with disdain before you started to think, I like this podcast and I like what we're talking about?
Well, once I started trying the things you actually were talking about. Well, as I said, I was living on my own. I was going to university, so I kind of made my own schedule. I could time when and what I ate. So I had a lot of time to try new things with using insulin, with different foods and stuff. And once I got into this I've managed until that point, I've basically managed my diabetes the same way since I started managing on my own. And with the ideas I got from the podcast, I started to have better control, see the better numbers. And I was kind of thinking like, this guy might actually know what he's talking about.
So you know, people might think I did this on purpose, but I did not know Melena's background in psychology before we started doing this. So I just want to be clear that I did not know about that before we started. But basically, you just went through the entire process that we spoke about in the beginning, like having a preconceived notion of something, but then you broke free of it, which is now we know from the earlier part of our conversation is a really a kind of a big celebration to have, because it's uncommon. So you're saying that most commonly people would listen, have their reaction, and not be able to adjust. So did you do something to help yourself adjust, or do you think that the desperation that diabetes puts you in just makes you open to listen to different ideas?
I would not call it desperation, because the way I was managing my diabetes, I did not have any issues. So I was not looking for answers. I basically stumbled upon them.
I see.
But I just think the effects the management methods had on my blood sugar were greater than any of my preconceived notions. So the good results I got out of listening were greater than
than your hate listening.
Me not liking. Yeah.
I might call this episode "Hate Listen," but that's not decided yet. Okay, so what was your A1C when you were, I don't know, 17 or 18? Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is a premixed autoinjector of glucagon for treatment of very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes ages 2 and above. Find out more. Go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. With the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor, you can see your glucose numbers or the glucose numbers of a loved one with just a quick glance at your smart device or Dexcom receiver. Get alerted when your glucose levels are heading high or low, and share your data with up to 10 followers. That's just a little bit of what the Dexcom G6 offers. The Dexcom G6 offers trend lines to show you where your glucose levels are headed and how fast they're getting there, so that you can take action. Maybe you've miscounted carbs and your blood sugar's rising. With the Dexcom G6, you'll be alerted before the problem gets out of hand. Same with a low blood sugar. Headed in the wrong direction? A couple of beeps on your smart device or your receiver will let you know to take a look. These alerts will allow you to take action before it's too late. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Head over now to get started with the Dexcom G6 or to see if you're eligible for a free 10-day trial of the G6. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Really is the best thing you could do for yourself. Anecdotally, my daughter's been at college now for about a month. There's a lot of adjustments going on, and I don't even know how she'd be able to handle this on her own if we weren't there to help her and get her back. And it's super easy to do when we can see her data on our phones. Right now, I'm helping Arden fight a high blood sugar while she does her homework, and we've already had a couple of lows at inopportune times that have been headed off because we knew they were coming. How did we know? Arden's wearing a Dexcom G6, and I and my wife can see her data on our iPhones. Check it out. I think you'll be glad that you did.
Not that bad technically. I think it was like a 6.4 or something.
That's good. That's good.
So it wasn't bad, but like my time in range was 50 to 65%.
I gotcha.
Because I spent like the entire day going from the 40s to 250 and back.
So you were one of those people who was tricking the system a little bit. Your time in range proves out that your A1C might not be well earned, I guess, like, or I don't know if well is the way to put it, but you might have been tricking the system a little bit by being low so much, right? And then you bounce up. And so what was the first thing that you heard on the podcast that got you moving in the right direction?
Well, it's always kind of been like, I was not actually tricking the system because my doctor was one of the first doctors in our area who looked more at time in range versus HbA1c.
Okay.
So I kind of got a little bit of scolding at my appointments.
I see.
I just I was 17. I did not bother.
You weren't listening when he was scolding you. By the way, also being scolded in German.
Yes,
which is it's a harsher language. Does it feel scarier? Like, is there something that I could say to you in English that would sound better than if it got said to you in German?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm just used to the language. So.
I understand. Can we test it very quickly? I'll say something, and then you say it back to me. You say the same thing back to me. Let me think.
I'm supposed to say it in German.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You can do that, right? You speak German?
Yes, I do.
Of course you do. Okay. All right. So hold on. Melena, I need you to try harder to keep your blood sugar in range.
Okay, let me think how I'm going to translate it. Scott, du musst dich mehr anstrengen, deinen Blutzucker unter Kontrolle zu halten.
Okay, so I will let the people listening decide which one sounded harsher. But I think, and I was trying to be a little harsh. So, okay. So I'm trying to imagine you 17 years old getting the riot act read to you about your 6'4". But are you looking at the 6'4" and thinking, but this 6'4" is good. Like, why are you yelling at me? Or did you understand why the doctor wasn't thrilled with it?
Well, I didn't understand why he wasn't thrilled with it because I was like thinking, well, of course the numbers go up and down, but like the average is okay. I'm coming out on top at the end of the day. So why are you yelling at me? I did not get at that point that the fluctuation in blood sugars was just as bad, if not worse, than high blood sugars.
Yeah, it's very
permanently.
Finding stability is very, very important. That's why in the beginning, even finding stability at a higher number is valuable. And then you can start to, kind of crank it down and bring it down a little bit at a time until you're comfortable. So he's telling you it's not quite right. You don't understand why it's not quite right. You find my podcast and you start imagining that it's possible. What did you attack first?
Well, the thing was, I was trying to lose weight at the time because I had gained a little bit moving away from home. Mm-hmm. I think in the US you call it like the freshman 15 or something.
That is what they call it.
And since I had a lot of lows during the day, I also kept eating extra calories. So I was trying to keep from crashing, basically. And I think it's like, I don't know when you start saying it like in the podcast, but there's always this notion of if you never go high, you never go low.
Right.
So I was just basically starting to try to not get high. And of course, it ended, since I was on pen at the time, so it basically ended with starting to pre-bolus, actually, because I had been taught pre-bolusing, but I never actually use it because waiting 20 minutes for your meal is just, it's a lot of time spent hungry.
A lot of time spent hungry.
I kind of started implementing that, and I had less highs, I had less lows. I started adjusting my basal. Then I had a point where I found out that with the I was injecting Levemir at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was always going low in the middle of the night. So I tried to lower my dose. I couldn't quite adjust it. So I also made the decision to switch to a pump right around that time.
Okay.
And as soon as I got on a pump with varying basal rates and pre-bolusing being even easier, since it was only the push of a button, things started to actually get way more stable. And I started to notice that I had, before having stable blood sugars, I had felt like shit, because all those hypos during the day, they were ruining my mood and my grades. I just hadn't realized it.
Yeah.
And once I got rid of those and of all the ups and downs, I started actually feeling better. My mental health got better. So I just stuck to it.
That's excellent. I'm really happy for you. I'm also very impressed that you figured it out at a younger age while you were at college too. Is that something not uncommon for you, or are you a particularly mature person for your age?
I guess I've kind of been. I'm the youngest of 5 children.
Oh, they stopped taking care of you years ago. You've been on your own since you were 7. I see.
No, well, all my siblings are way older than me, so I was kind of like the last one left at home, and my parents were both working full time, so I was kind of on my own a lot.
I see.
Which I think makes you a bit more mature.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I moved out at 17, which is, I don't know if that's common in the US. It's not quite common around here.
To go to school? Did you leave to go to school?
Yes.
Yeah, that's about the age when it happens here, 17 or 18, when you're done with high school. But usually those kids then go to college and make stupid, dumb decisions for 2.5 years until the middle of their junior year. And then they look up and they're like, oh, what am I doing? And then maybe they pull it together, when they're 21 or so, a little bit, or begin to pull it together a little bit. But you made big changes to your healthcare, and then you noticed what happened. Talk about it for another second again. I know you said you didn't feel well. How long did it take you to start feeling better, and how remarkable was the change?
I think as the first thing which made me feel better were not going low at night, mm-hmm. because I woke up in the middle of the night. I did not have an real CGM. I had the Libre, okay. which did not have alarms. So right. I woke up from my low blood sugar. I ate, then went back to bed. So I had gotten, I don't know. I think the Libre usually just read low. Which was not quite accurate, so it must have been like the 50s or 40s. Mm-hmm. I had that low blood sugar, I had interrupted sleep. Then I got up in the morning. I was usually a bit higher than I should have been because, as I said, the Libre doesn't have alarms, and I woke up hungry in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And that's basically how I started my day. And also, when you're in the library studying and you go low all the time, that's time you spend sitting there trying to read your books, in which you basically don't learn anything because your brain can't process it. Mm. So that's just time of your day wasted.
That's I think a burden that people don't recognize right away, and then it has a way of compounding. And before you know it, you're lost. A bad episode turns into a bad morning, turns into a bad day, a bad week. And then before you know it, it seems normal. And then that's it. You don't even know what's happening anymore. You're just lost in it.
Exactly. That's the thing. That was my normal. I was not actively thinking about the fact that this was not okay. This was just regular way to start my day, regular way to go studying. I did not think about that this was an issue I could fix myself.
I feel bad that everybody, or for anybody that ends up feeling that way, like not only is this thing happening, but it's out of my control. And I think that it's a sentiment that gets passed around too. So you have to be careful when you're in the community, because you can find a number of people who are all stuck in the same moment, and then they start commiserating with each other. And then if you're watching from the outside, you can accept what they're saying as the rule and just, oh, I guess this is what diabetes is going to be. I'm going to get low in the middle of the night. I'm going to eat food and gain weight and feel badly. And that's what happened to me. And that's that. But I'm glad that you figured out that that didn't have to be the case. Did you share it with your parents? Did you like contact them and you're like, hey, I'm doing better? Or does that not even occur to you?
Diabetes wasn't really a topic with my parents by the time I moved out. I just didn't really talk about my management. The reports which came back from my doctor were like kind of okay, because as I said, the A1Cs were okay. And while I was moving out, my diabetes was not a topic that we really talked about. We hadn't talked about it since I was around 14 when I took up my own management. I started talking to my parents about this when I was starting the process of getting a pump. When I was saying, hey, look at these numbers. I'm doing real good. I've also kind of had a notion of, look how good I'm doing this. You never did it as good.
Oh, you think maybe they were upset knowing that they couldn't do it as well?
I don't know. I mean, the one thing I have to say is, when I was a child, my dad tried to manage. He gave everything. He just overshot the runway a little bit, and the results weren't really good. So as a kid, I had like A1Cs in the 8s, around that. So my parents, I think during my teen years, they always saw that I had like the 6-something A1C, and they thought that was okay.
It was better.
And also, I don't think I would have been responsive if they would have tried to talk about my management.
Okay. Because why do you think?
Well, it's kind of been like, before I started managing on my own, like, as I said, all of my siblings are way older, so they used to babysit me. And to this day, they tell stories about how they were constantly getting called by my father. And he never said hello to them on the phone. The first thing he always said to them was, "What's her blood sugar?"
So your dad was worried about you, and that made your siblings feel like he didn't care about them.
Well, it made them kind of feel like I was the most cared about. I mean, I was also the smallest child, so that's just part of the issue. But it also kind of made me think that like my diabetes was the thing about me worth caring.
Yeah, I see. So he didn't talk to you about anything other than that either?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not a lot. I mean, he was working full time. So basically he called during the day and he did my nighttime blood sugar checks. That was the most time we spent together during the week.
Oh, I understand. I mean, he probably had no time, and the little bit of time he did have, he was putting towards you, trying to help you be healthy. And
yes, I mean, he had the best intentions. It's just like, I feel like in some parts the child which actually had the diabetes fell a bit short.
Oh, you felt like you weren't doing what you should be doing? Or what do you mean by that?
I mean, my diabetes was the first issue on his mind. Every other thing concerning me came second or third.
I see. Were your parents much older by the time you were, like, how old are they now?
My parents are in the mid-60s.
Yeah. So my son is a year older than you, and I'm 50, and my wife's like, I don't know how old she is, like 48 or something. I should probably know. I could do the math, but it's not important. So your parents are 15 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm young compared to my children's age. I think I am a little bit. I can remember going to school events for my kid, and the other parents in the room always felt like 5 years older than me, maybe, or a little more than that, but nobody felt 15 years older than me. So your parents just had one good night 15 years later, huh?
Well, all I'm going to say about this is my eldest sister is 26 years older than me.
Oh my gosh. Your mom get drunk at a wedding when she was like 45 or something like that, you think? Something like that, maybe?
I know the story of how I came to be. Let's just
private.
Leave it at that.
Yeah, I got you.
And alcohol was involved.
See, there we go. I'm imagining a beer stein and a dress that I've only ever seen on television, and then before you know it, you're over there with your diabetes, and your brothers and sisters are like, where did she even come from? They must have felt like they bought a dog like too late in life. Like, why did mom and dad get this? Not that you understand. You understand.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound like an easy way to grow up, but yet you seem very upbeat and proactive. Why did this not make you sad and resentful?
I mean, I think it did for a little while. Okay. So, as I said, like, I started managing completely on my own at like age 13, 14. And I started like, I'm just calling it the Juicebox method at around like 18. So in those years between, I was managing, as I said, but I was not talking about the topic. I wasn't talking about diabetes with my parents, as I said. I tried to think about my management as little as possible. Mm-hmm. So I barely even ever adjusted like my basal doses, even though I was still growing. So I think it kind of made me not resentful towards like my parents. It made me resentful towards the disease. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was just managing. I wasn't thinking about it. Gotcha. And I sometimes find myself now that I know all the things I know now, looking back at those times and thinking like, how did I even survive this?
You think you got lucky a couple of times?
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
I had like issues with eating, I would call it, like something going in the direction of like binge eating, where I would just put in 30 units, open the kitchen cupboard and eat whatever I could find.
Wow.
And so that 30 units was based on nothing. Okay. And I think all of those things that could have gone wrong.
Yeah, no kidding. Could have just not been hungry at some point and stopped eating and had way too much insulin, or just overshot it differently. Talk about that a little bit. Is that a feeling of, I don't want to think about having diabetes. What I eat makes me think about diabetes. So I will throw in so much insulin that I can eat with abandon, and then I'll get to pretend for a little while I don't have it? Or is that not what was happening?
Well, I think what you're implying, that's way too conscious. I wasn't thinking about the diabetes at all.
Got it.
The thing was, of course, with my parents always trying to manage me, I also got into fights with them regarding like eating candy and stuff when I was younger. I think every diabetic child does at some point. And so when I was like older, I could buy my own food. I had complete control of what I ate, and I just wanted to indulge.
Mhm.
So the diabetes was like not the important part about it. It was actually the food. Like I just wanted to have all these things, and whatever happened to the disease didn't matter at that point.
I see. Is there any other autoimmune issues with you or anyone in your family?
With me currently, no. My family's got issues with hypothyroidism.
Oh, and you've gotten away from it somehow.
I've gotten away from it so far, yeah.
Interesting. Good for you. Brothers and sisters, moms and dads, is it spread everywhere?
It's coming from my mom's side, kind of guessing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so neither of my parents actually do, but it's been on my mom's side of the family. And one of my sisters and one of my brothers both have it. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
We're guessing it's from that side.
I see. Okay. Did you decide at some point, you kept saying pump, but I don't know what pumps are available in Germany.
Well, I mean, most of the pumps which are available in the US are, and actually some more because some European manufacturers are
Okay.
around. The pump I got when I was getting on a pump was actually tubeless. It wasn't the Omnipod. Sorry.
No, you have to be sorry. What's that, like Gypsomed or something like that, or is that what it's called?
No, the company was called Medtronic.
Oh.
And I think it still exists, but the pump has been pulled from the market.
I'm trying to find it. I'm not having a lot of luck. Let's see.
I think it's spelled MEDTRUM.
All right, I might have it. Oh, was it like green and white?
Yes, exactly. Two parts.
Interesting. Look at that. How long did you have that for?
Only a year.
The company disappeared, or
exactly.
you didn't like it?
No. The company had they lost a legal battle here in Germany, and they had to pull it from the German market. So I had to get another pump, and also by the time I had been on a pump for a year, I was trying to get into looping. So
okay.
I was kind of happy I got to choose a new pump.
Did you loop with Omnipod or with Medtronic?
Neither.
Which one did you use?
I'm using Adana RS.
Look at you. It's like you live on a different planet. Spell that for me.
As Dana, like the first name.
Okay.
And the letters RS.
RS. Oh, it looks a lot like, oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, it's available like in North Korea or excuse me. I'm misreading. It's a Korean pump.
It's a Korean pump,
it's a Korean pump. Yeah. Oh, look at that. It's cool. I've never seen that one before. Dana. And so you're using that to loop with?
Exactly.
Are you using the same loop algorithm I'm using, or are you using a different one?
I'm using the Android version.
Android version. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your experience been?
I think loop is kind of fascinating. I think I wrote it in my email. I'm on the faster version of Humalog, so Lyme-Jeff insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm basically I'm using loop without manually giving boluses or entering carbs, as long as the total amount of carbs is below 50.
Say that again for me. I'm sorry.
I'm not manually bolusing or entering carbs as long as like the total amount of carbs in a meal is below 50.
So are you telling it you're eating, or it sees the change and handles it?
I'm telling it to lower the target blood sugar to 72 for, I think, 2 hours usually.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I don't actually know what the algorithm per se does, but there is some kind of programming going on, so the corrections get stronger, and it usually catches up to all of the carbs.
That's kind of brilliant. That's a different way to manipulate it. Who taught you that?
I mean, the internet.
the internet told you that?
Basically, there are a lot of like people working on Android Loop in Germany, and of course there's a Facebook group and then a website where they talk about their new ideas. And when Lime Chef became available in Germany, lots of people were like thinking, well, this insulin is so fast. Maybe if we're not eating the most sugary stuff, we can get this to a like closed mode loop.
Mm-hmm.
And they started trying, and I was just kind of, I don't know, I was kind of following as people were trying like to eat different meals and seeing what the original algorithm did with it, with a ultra fast acting insulin inside. And once enough people had posted their results and they were looking good, I don't know, I kind of started trying it. And I think like the limit of 50 carbs kind of varies between people. So I say I need to do a manual bolus if I'm exceeding 50 carbs. For some people it's more, for some people it's less.
Gotcha.
It also it does of course not work with every kind of food. Like the time it takes for a Dexcom to measure the interstitial fluid would be way too long for something like cereal.
Okay. Yeah. What I'm seeing here about that insulin, I was poking around on the internet a little bit. It seems like if you're a person who already pre-boluses with a different insulin, you're not going to see a big difference with this, but that it might eliminate your need for such a long pre-bolus. But you're saying you see it right around 50 carbs. If you go over 50 carbs, it's not fast enough to catch up, even though you're setting that lower target.
It's not fast enough to catch up just using loop. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. But still, just setting the target lower is kind of brilliant. It's almost it's the algorithm version of setting a temp basal increase over top of a meal. Like you're adding extra insulin, or you're adding extra emphasis. You're telling the loop, like, be more aggressive. I don't know what is your usual target for loop?
I think it's like 90 to 85.
And then instead you go to eat, you just tell it, try to make me 72. How long before you eat? How long before you eat do you have to tell it that?
I usually put in the target like half an hour before eating.
So you're pre-bolusing with the target instead of pre-bolusing with insulin, and it's taking care of putting in the insulin, because even if you're like if you're 90 at that moment, it's going to immediately get more aggressive trying to get you to 72.
Exactly. But the difference between like setting the target and doing a pre-bolus is if I don't manage to eat 30 minutes later, for example, at a restaurant or something, nothing's going to happen below 70.
Because it's still only shooting for 70.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I saw today, Arden was at school today. I have no idea what happened, but her blood sugar was just chugging along in the 80s. It had been like that for like 8 hours. And she didn't eat anything, but I don't know what happened. But she suddenly went to an arrow straight up. And I think she got to like 130 with still an up arrow. And I looked and the algorithm was like hitting her with insulin. It was making like, so I used the version of Loop that allows bolusing. And like it was bolusing her like a unit and a half at a time. And then it waited a little longer and gave her more. And I'm actually looking at it now because I never investigated it. But yeah, she was 74 and then suddenly 82, 97, 115, 129, like over a half an hour. But she never got above 134 and 850. An hour later, she was 108, and an hour and a half later, she was 85. And it just is, I don't know what happened to her. I don't know why that happened, but just imagine if that happened on a regular pump or with MDI, like who knows where her blood sugar would have stopped. Probably, I'm going to guess like 240, maybe. So
Probably.
these algorithms are crazy cool. I love them. Like really, really
And now imagine the reason her blood sugar started to climb was something she'd eaten, and Loop just basically handled that on its own. That's kind of what I'm going with.
Yeah. No. I've seen like us like forget insulin, completely. Mm-hmm. And it'll still hold her, unless it's something crazy, like you said, like cereal or something, bananas. But I meant bananas like crazy, not bananas like a banana. And something like that, still it can stop her before like 200 and at least gives you time to react to it and go, oh God, we didn't put in insulin and fix it, It's really cool. Where did you hear about looping from?
Actually, I think the first kind of contact I had with Loop was on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
When you started about Arden starting looping. And I just kind of thought like, at first I thought it was like an iOS thing, and I'm an Android user. Mm. I'm not using any Apple device besides AirPods.
You're very upset at Apple? We can talk about that later. That's okay.
And then I kind of thought, well, it must be a mostly American thing, because I saw all of these people using like the old Medtronic pumps. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of started looking around on like Facebook for German groups and what they were saying. And I found like the German loop groups and the instructions to build loop. They're also available in German. So I knew there must be people around here doing that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of got into that through mostly Facebook.
It's amazing, isn't it? That Facebook can be valuable.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. It's really terrific. Yeah. And it made me happy because I think there are people inside of like the original loop core of people who I don't think they like me very much. And, I got your loop into Germany, so you couldn't do that. So there you go. That's all. I just wanted to say that real quick. I don't know what their problem is, those people who have problems, but I love that thing and I'm happy to like sing its praises. And, I don't know what their issue is. I think maybe I might have made it pretty popular by it being on the podcast, and who knows? I'd be guessing, Melena, if I had to guess, and I don't want to guess. I could be completely wrong. I don't like to pretend I know how people feel. I just hear stories and they hurt my feelings. That's all, Melena. And you've hurt my feelings and I'm going to lash out. If we can consider this that. So how long have you been doing that now?
I think I started a little bit over a year ago with loop like in general. Mm-hmm. And not really manually bolusing like in February or March of this year.
I'm going to try that, by the way. I seriously am. Like the next time Arden tries something, I'll be like, let's set a temporary target rate and see how that goes. That's really cool. I love how much autonomy the program gives you. How you're really able to make. I mean, all the other ones from companies just, I'm going to imagine, are not going to give you that much freedom to be changing settings like that. But it's cool. It gives you a different way to think about the insulin, which I think it ends up being the most important thing, is that because you could accomplish that with a regular pump if you wanted to. You could do a temp basal increase a half an hour before you eat and make it significant enough that it would use enough insulin to cover those carbs. Yeah, you could. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. And like you said, as long as they're not too harsh or too much in quantity, it should be able to stay ahead of it. I'm thinking it through while you're talking.
Yeah, but there's also there's not much thought process going into it. Like if I had to set a manual basal, I have to set that up. Then it probably would not be enough to cover a meal. So I'd have to bolus.
Right.
And with using loop to cover meals, it's just one temporary target set like around 30 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's 20, doesn't matter if it's 40.
Mm-hmm.
And you just start eating, and in the best, and honestly, in the regular case for me, I don't have to think about it meal another time.
Wow. What kind of eating do you normally do? Like, what are you eating?
I'd say I eat quite regular food. So, I do have some of my high carb meals, but as I said, I'm putting in a little bit of a bolus for those because most Italian food or anything like that won't be covered entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay around like those 40 grams of carbs at a meal if I'm like working or doing something where I don't want to spend time looking at my phone and looking at the numbers. I'm trying to keep with like the 50 gram goal.
Okay.
But overall, I'd say I eat a pretty regular diet.
Okay. Vegetables, bread, meat, cheese, etc.
Yes, and yes.
Gotcha. Excellent. That's exciting. That must be incredibly exciting for you, honestly, right? Like after how everything's been for so many years, how much effort you had to put into it, and when you were guessing and going through those other issues. Is it let me ask the question a different way. If someone came along and took it from you, what would it mean? If a health authority stopped Loop from being available or something like that, like how would that impact you?
Overall, I don't think it would like impact my blood sugars a lot. It maybe would even make them a bit better, because if I were to manage entirely manually again, most of those small food spikes, which need to happen in order for Loop to react, would not happen. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think there would be a period spanning some month of real intense thinking about things once again, and trying to figure out, and maybe I would have a bit less variety in the kind of food I ate, just because trying to keep things easier. And I think if someone stopped my Loop right now, I would manage, but diabetes would become a way bigger part of my daily life once more. And yeah, I don't want to think about people stopping Loop.
I'm happy that you share that, though, because I'm interested in what effects it would have. So you're saying you know enough about it, you'd be able to pull it together and manage your blood sugars, but it would take time away from your life. It would change your relationship with food, and those things are not positive, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I could live without it. I just wouldn't want to.
I understand. Now I worry about sometimes, like I worry that, one day the FDA is just going to be like, no, you can't do that. And they wouldn't be able to. I don't see how they could stop the algorithm from being available, right, online. So then that would mean they'd have to pressure the hardware manufacturers. Do you know what I mean? Like if they were looking for a way to put a stop to it, they couldn't stop the sharing of the algorithm. They'd have to go after the companies. I don't know how they would do that, or if they would. I'm just saying that's what I worry about.
I'm kind of thinking, as you say, that like in the US, you can only use like old Omnipods and old Medtronic pumps to lube, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the Omnipod, the Eros pods work, and yeah, there's the Medtronic. I mean, and then there's another version of like an algorithm that I'm not as familiar with. I'm not sure what works for them, but I think it's Medtronic for sure. And there's also not many pumps left here. There's Medtronic.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. So like, it isn't kind of the hardware running out.
Yeah, Medtronic, Omnipod, and then there's Tandem, but you can't loop with Tandem. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to imagine. I mean, it's being, as far as I can tell so far, nobody's making a problem about it. But it's one of the things that always sticks in the back of my head. Like, we're using this thing, and it's tenuous, right? It's being managed by people online. Sometimes they make additions and subtractions to it, and they fix it or whatever that means. And then there's, the companies that make products, and this isn't how they mean for them to be used. And so far, nothing's come of that, but that's the part I worry about. Anyway, I like worrying about things. That's one of the things that pops into my head. But I love it. I hope nobody touches it. They should all just leave it the hell alone. Right? Let you be happy. Well,
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. I want them to let you be happy.
Well, I think I'm gonna stay happy because the company my pump is from, they released a new model this year, which has already been integrated into Android Loop. So I should be safe like for the next 6 to 7 years, hardware wise.
Nice. I can remember at the beginning of all this where people were scavenging old pumps that were able to be looped, and they were buying them online from people, and people were finding them in drawers and giving them away and stuff. And like, I don't want it to come back to that. I think this is a pretty fair balance. So, and you've got your Korean pump, so you're all set.
Well, I sometimes find myself thinking whenever I see one of those posts like, hey, I found an old Medtronic in a drawer from my cousin or something, like how many of these old Medtronic pumps have been around before they got pulled? Yeah. Right. Because it seems to never end.
I know, but there's always somebody that finds one somewhere. It's pretty fascinating. I think if you came here, you'd find some Omnipods in boxes in a couple of different places. So it's hilarious. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't think so, actually.
You did okay?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I did.
Well, I'm glad. Is it not strange for you that I'm like more than twice as old as you are? That doesn't matter to you?
No, actually, like the strangest feeling is like hearing your talk and hearing your voice and kind of getting it into my head that I'm supposed to respond. Because I'm so used to hearing your talk, and I'm like, okay, he's talking. Why is there white noise? Oh, I should be talking now.
Well, I think as long as you don't start answering your headphones when I'm not really with you, I think that'll be fine. I do understand that. I understand it because I've heard it from a number of people that they'll say like, we'll get done and I'll be like, how was that for you? And they're like, it was very strange to hear you talking and that I had to respond. And I was like, oh, okay. So I try to make people comfortable. You seem like you're comfortable. Are you?
I am.
Yeah. Very cool.
Even though, I mean, I was kind of worried. This is my second language after all. Yeah. But I think I've expressed myself quite well. So
I didn't,
or articulated myself quite well.
I thought you did, and I didn't hear you. Like there was one time where you said, like, I have to think about how I want to say this, but other than that, like, I didn't think you had any thought to translation issues. I thought you did good.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people who this isn't their, English isn't their first language, and that's what I've learned mostly is that they spend time. Like we don't always have the same words. And so you have to rephrase things or say them differently so that they mean something similar. And you can hear people get caught up once in a while trying to find it. And I don't know what's happening this week, but yesterday I recorded with a Frenchman, and today I think I'm making my way through Europe this week. So,
well, maybe someone from the Netherlands would be next.
It would be nice if people would reach out. Let me tell you where the podcast is the most popular, like top 10. US first, then Canada, then Australia. And Australia and Canada sometimes go back and forth. Like sometimes the downloads in Australia will beat Canada, vice versa. Then it's United Kingdom, Germany, New Zealand, Ireland, Sweden, Belgium, and Norway. And I'm always interested that it's never like, isn't Norway one of the places where like every other person has type 1 diabetes? Is that what I'm thinking of? Hold on a second. Norway. Type 1. There's a place. Oh, there's a place over there, because I don't really understand the map that well, where like type 1 diabetes is just in abundance. And yet those people haven't found the podcast yet. I might have to go over there and do a tour. I'm going to find out exactly where that is and stand in the center of town and talk about basal insulin until people start paying attention or something like that.
Doing some on-site advertising.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'll get out ahead of it. Hey, when are you done college now? How much longer do you have?
I'll be done in the spring.
Oh, that's excellent. And do you have a job to jump into, or is that what you're trying to figure out now?
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now. If I'm like, I'll be done with my bachelor's in spring. Mm-hmm. And currently I'm figuring out whether I want to work afterwards or if I'm going to start my master's. Okay.
All right. Are you leaning in one way or the other?
Currently I'm thinking about keeping on studying, so doing my master's.
Gotcha. Well, you're going to figure out how people think and help them. That's your goal?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to help anybody. Nobody can think.
Probably not.
But I guess the endeavor and the value in it is the trying, right? Like trying to get people to see things that they don't see.
Yeah, I think the one thing you can help people with is making them aware of the way they think and where there might be mistakes. I mean, that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think so.
You're talking to people about how they think about their diabetes management and then trying to find their mistakes and how they think about it, why their results don't match with their effort they put in.
Well, Melena, you really understand me on a different level, don't you? Go ahead. You do, don't you? You see what I'm doing, don't you?
I kind of do.
Oh, do you think everybody knows?
I think most people who listen do.
I'm not trying to hide it. I just, yeah, I'm definitely doing that. I am absolutely. I think that it's unfair to put people into a situation like this and then ask them to not only figure out the situation, but figure out the way that their brain works and overcome the things that are stopping them. You can't. I mean, by the time we fix that, it'll be too late. So I put things out there in a way where that becomes, I don't know how I want to put it, where the information about handling your diabetes becomes the thing you're willing to vote for. You know what I mean? So you hear it and you hear people's real honest lives with it. You can believe that it works. It gets mirrored through my personal experiences. That should be enough to get somebody to be interested. Then they can kind of put it together in ways that work for them, give it a shot, see it work, believe in it, keep going. Then eventually that turns into, like you said, not much effort to keep blood sugars where you want. And then that's it. Then I'm done with you, and you can keep listening for the stories, and then we'll get somebody new again. But I didn't know. You just sound like you're inside of my head while you're talking. You're freaking me out.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't used to getting a compliment. I mean, you were basically complimenting yourself while complimenting me.
You have the whole thing right. This is amazing. You really do get me. No, you just, I say it all the time in a different way. Like, you agree with me, so I like you.
Well, I mean, as I've said previously, people don't even need to like you to understand your ideas.
Doesn't matter. And there are some people like that, by the way. And I've received their emails, and it's fine with me. Don't worry. I just got one recently again. All right, we'll end with this. Let me find it for you. Hold on a second. It just cracked me up. Please, I don't want a bunch of these though. You'll kill me inside. But this one, if I get it once in a while, it's okay. Let's see if I can find it. I'm looking at reviews.
But I remember like you talking about this while I was still kind of like hate listening.
Mm-hmm.
That there's an episode where you say like, oh, I get those people who absolutely hate me once in a while. They send their emails.
Well, I appreciate you not emailing.
And I was thinking like, well, now I'm not sending one if I'm just one of many.
Host can talk a lot about himself versus interviewing guests, but can have great content. Yeah, I love that one. There's one back a couple of years ago that basically just says, I don't like that guy at all, but it's a really good podcast and my blood sugars are better. And that I'm laughing about it, but not everybody can like me, but I'm happy that the podcast is valuable enough that even if I'm not somebody who you would choose to listen to for your entertainment, it's still worth listening to. Like, I think that's great. Try to imagine if I tried to be somebody who everyone would like. That would be irritating because it wouldn't be real. I would just basically say nothing, have no opinions, and then blurt out stuff about diabetes, and you wouldn't listen to that. So, yeah, I know everybody doesn't like me. It's okay. I'm okay with it. I just don't want everybody to email.
I didn't like you. I've listened to like not all of the episodes, but like 500.
You've listened to like 500? Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm now talking to you directly, so.
You really do. Yeah. Okay. So tell people now. You love me now, right?
Well,
let's put it this way.
I kind of like you.
Right, let's put it this way. Melena, let's be more fair. You, me, and your dad are in a rowboat. The rowboat starts to sink. We got to throw someone off so that the rowboat doesn't sink. Who leaves, me or your dad?
You.
But I love the pause. You were always going to say me, but I love how long you paused. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. All right.
My dad's an experienced sailor. He's someone I'd like to have on a boat.
Plus, you could just let him listen to the podcast if you need his help. So I've done enough now. I mean, it's all here, right? Melena, like people, you listen, it gets easier, right?
It does.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you understanding me and laughing along with me too. I really, I had a great time talking to you, and I'm really pleased that you came on. I thank you for taking the time. I know it's later in the evening where you are, and you must be hungry and trying to get your evening going. So thank you very much.
It's okay. Thank you for having me on.
A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. I'm also going to thank Dexcom and remind you to check out the Dexcom G6 at dexcom.com/juicebox. And last but not least, Melena for coming on and hate sharing her story. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.